This podcast sometimes uses strong language, and it may cover topics that require viewer discretion. Also, it's a podcast. It's not a primary source of information. If you'd like to follow along visually with the show, or read any of the papers we talk about yourself, you can find all of those links and more at ridiculousresearchreview.com.
Hello, and welcome to the Ridiculous Research Review.
So, what you're about to listen to is the first episode of the Ridiculous Research Review that we recorded all the way back in November of 2024. When we did that, we weren't exactly sure what we were going to call the show. It was going by a different name, which you will see very quickly in the episode. And it had a totally different premise, all about, like, whether or not research papers get funding, which wasn't something we actually thought was super funny. It was just something that we were trying to see if that was an angle.
We started with that angle because of our backgrounds, right? Like we had decided with the three of us, my background in nonprofit, Pat's in theater and production, James in research and science stuff, that it made sense that we could be something like a grant review board for funding for sort of research. And that made sense then.
Right. And then the current presidential administration did all the things that it did, and that premise became super not funny super fast. So we sort of retooled the whole show, and we've taken a whole different angle on it. But we wanted to put out this first episode because, well, we kind of liked what we did, and the research paper that is in here is really cool, and we want to tell you about it. So, we've already spoken too much. We're going to let you listen to that now, and us from the present, future, wherever we are now, are going to come back at the end, and we're going to tell you about how episodes are going to go from here.
I'm going to throw this at you, though, because I did have one idea for a little button here. And so I've done the fun game of simply Googling scientists find. And so I will leave you this bit from the Yale University Reflections.
Oh, no.
Scientists find the universe is awash in tiny diamonds.
James, are you recording at this point? Because if you are not, I would suggest that you start recording at this point. Because you're about to start talking about things and you can't help yourself.
I know. Okay, so here's the gist. Sometimes you see a paper and you're like, what the fuck? What the fuck? Why would you do that? And for me, that means I go read the paper. And I know that's true. That's not true for everybody. For some people, it just means, here's a clickbait headline, aren't scientists crazy?
So, and I want before you go into that part of it, I want to take one more step back here. My first question: what is the show?
One of my favorite descriptions of science that just makes me laugh every time I think about it is fucking around and finding out. Not fucking around and then finding out,
but finding out whilst fucking around.
Absolutely, because a lot of science happens when you're just doing a thing, or vice versa, you have a weird fucking question that the only way to answer that weird fucking question is to fuck around a little bit. And so I have found a list of papers like this, and I know for a fact that there are many papers where the scientists have done something that on the surface looks freaking nuts. It looks like they are absolutely just fucking around, spending the government's money or somebody's money or their own money doing something fucking weird. And what I'm going to try to do is present that. We can laugh about how crazy it seems. And then I'm going to tell you why they did it and why maybe they found something out that was kind of cool.
I'm going to put a little bit of spin on that. Just a little curve on that. You're going to try to convince Edie and I that what they did was worth it.
Yeah, that's the hey, that is the plan.
And I bet you're going to lose most of the time.
And I'm especially going to say, when it comes to the way that government money is being spent, I'm a hard sell.
This was the point that I actually really wanted to make sure that we made at the top of this thing, because as far as introductions go, I think intentionally or accidentally, James, I'm not sure exactly which, you have combined here a great team with a shocking amount of experience in exactly the things that you were looking around. Who we are, right? In regards to this algorithm, let's of course start with the least impressive. James, who are you, and what's your background?
I'm James.
Such a fucking dick.
If you want to be all formal about it, I'm Dr. James Lynch, PhD, PE. I have a PhD in mechanical engineering.
So many unnecessary letters.
So many unnecessary letters. It's great. I just in that introduction, I used doctor and PhD, which is truly terrible.
Doctor of PhD, James Lynch.
Doctor PhD. No, I have a PhD in mechanical engineering. Way too much school. I studied robotics and controls, but also the evolution and biomechanics of insect flight.
Great. So, I posit here that obviously James is filling the role of finding out. Okay?
Yes.
I'm Pat Brennan. I am the technical director at Pace University. I have a studied career in film and television and generally finding ways to entertain folks, be that board games that I make or podcasts like the one that I have done with James that Edie was a guest star on, and just a lot of time in theater, to be clear, not the acting side of things, but the technical side of things, wherein a director will give to me and a designer will give to me their dreams and visions, all of which are completely insane, and it is my job to figure out how to make that thing reality. So I posit that my portion of contribution to this podcast is fucking around. Hey, Edie, who are you? What do you do?
So the interesting thing here is I'm a good in-between.
You are a good in-between.
Of Pat and James, because I have a degree in theater, and I am a poet and storyteller. And at the same time, I did work for about 7 years in mechanical engineering, which how and why I did that is not important. Don't ask questions. But I did it. And now I work in nonprofit higher ed as an operations director. It's probably best to think of me as a professional generalist.
And just to clarify, how much of your time is spent figuring out how money gets spent?
Oh, like a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of my time is figuring out how money gets spent because a lot of my time is figuring out how I can get that money. Government grants and all of that shit is my bread and butter. And then applying that to how I make sure people get paid. So I do a lot of money stuff.
Sorry, this is what I get at. I am not questioning your skills in fucking around and your skills in finding out. Those are well known. No.
My big thing is it worth it?
Your specific expertise at this point in your life, in your literal career, is in fact obtaining government money and deciding how to worthwhile spend it.
Yes, yeah, and making sure that the people that I am supporting by attaining those funds are not fucking around. So
I had this realization the other day, and I was like, oh no, we do actually have a professional spectrum here.
Hey, we could be a grant review board right here, not gonna lie.
Fantastic. All right, so now that we've kind of talked about our credentials a little bit here, I bring to you today. I'll tell you the title of the paper, and heads up at the front. I'm withholding information because for the fun.
For the bit.
For the bit. All right. Actually, I'm not even going to tell you the title of the paper. I'm just
going
to tell.
You got to give me the title.
No, we need at least.
Well,
that.
no. You'll see. I'm going to tell you what they did.
Okay.
That's how we're going to start. Okay.
All right.
So there's a couple of Canadian bee scientists, people studying bees. The authors' names are Sabrina Rondeau and Nigel E. Rain. They're from universities in Ottawa, Canada. They're Canadian. And they went out and they purchased 4 Bombus impatiens, which is the common eastern bumblebee. They purchased 4 colonies. Fun fact about bumblebees, they form colonies during the year, but then the queens are the only thing that survives winter. Everything else dies. The queen then goes into diapause, a kind of hibernation. It's another word for hibernation. They dig a hole in the ground. They go hide inside what's called a hibernaculum, which is a very good word, and they basically go to sleep for the entire winter. So what these folks did is in the summertime, they purchased 4 Bombus impatiens colonies from a company called BioBest Canada, because yes, you too can go purchase a bunch of bumblebees if you want to.
I don't know why you would want to.
I agree, but you could. It's available for science. They raised these bumblebees. They waited until the hives produced queens, and then those queens were separated from the rest of the hive. They got 143 of them in a little chamber full of queen bees.
143 queen bees?
Yeah.
Okay.
143, or technically not, they had not mated, so they are not, they cannot produce another hive, but they're female bees that could become queens. They're called gynes. They took 143 of these, and when they were mature enough, they put them in the fridge. And putting them in the fridge causes them to go to...
Excuse me, they put them where now?
They took 143 bees, like, I don't know what you're not following, but they took 143 bees, and they put them in the fridge. In the paper, it's referred to as cold storage.
I assume that you were going to tell us about how they were put in the fridge and which fridge they were put in. Is that in this paper?
I mean, probably just a lab fridge. Probably they just have a big fridge full of bees.
And you have worked in a lab. I have not. I have worked... I'm assuming the fridge is different than the fridge you keep your lunch in.
Yeah, usually, yeah.
Oh, thank God.
Usually, yeah.
That's good.
Okay.
That's good. However, I will say, so far, James, you have presented to me a true horror story in which 143 queens, Slay Girl, got put in the freezer by some mad scientists.
Yeah, that's what's happening so far. That's where we're at.
Mm-hmm. I'm also very much still stuck on a hibernaclium and how I can get one.
It's a great word. Once those 143 unmated queens were asleep, because putting them into cold storage makes them go to sleep, because as winter comes, that's how they trigger diapause. They then they weighed each one of them, and then put them into falcon tubes, which are these plastic little, like, they're a cone on the bottom and then a cylinder. They took soil from where they live, like put it to a particular amount of moisture, put it at the bottom of the tube, and they put the bees in the fridge.
So we've now got bee popsicles.
You've got bee popsicles. They check that they're still alive by basically leaving them on the counter for a little while and seeing if they wiggle their legs, and they do. So they're like, cool. They started out alive. And then what they did, and for our listeners, we're going to put a couple of slides. We're going to put a link to this paper as well, so you can look at these figures. It happens to be open access, which is lovely. This is what they did. They took us.
Wait a second. Hold on.
Why don't? Wait. Okay. So why don't one of you describe what you see? One of you describe what you see.
Were they inventing waterboarding bees?
What's happening? So they took 143 queens, they put them to sleep, they stuck them in the freezer, and then they fucking drowned them.
Okay, so there's I see what's happening. Here's what we're looking at for those of you that don't have access to a photo. Oh my God. Control. No water. It's the bee in the tube that James described. The bee is just hanging out on dirt. Pretty cool to be the control bee. The next one just says left to float and water.
And shows a very pleasant bumblebee going for a swim, doing a fucking backstroke. It's got its little leg in the air like it's waving to us.
These poor bees had their tube about a third of the way filled with water. I'm assuming it's water. It doesn't actually...
It is water.
It just says water. And then the last bee, the worst bee situation, they have the same setup with a third of their tube is filled with water, but a plunger has been added, and these bees are being kept underneath the surface of the water.
Also, for the ones left to float and the ones, quote, maintained underwater, it says... They are bracketed, and it says 3 durations, 8 hour, 24 hour, 7 days.
7 days.
Are we looking at the worst part about this now, James, because you haven't told us the title? I'm trying to sit here and solve what it is that we're testing for. And, like, are we looking for Bee Aquaman? Like, what? The fuck is happening?
This figure also notes that this Bumblebee graphic has been modified from the original by Jeremy Hamburger.
Jeremy, acclaimed bee torturer.
That's just a good citation, okay? Okay, that's crediting the artist, all right?
All right, James, go on.
So yeah, for 2/3 of these bees, they attempted to drown them. And for
Why do you say attempted?
I'm pretty sure if you leave a bee underwater for 7 days, it's gonna be fucking dead.
Edie buddy, I'm questioning that now because now I don't know. I think we're about to learn something quite scary. James, continue.
Get excited because science is cool, and the vast majority of them survived.
What are you saying?
Look at I've now pulled up figure 2 from this paper, and what we have is they are looking at the survival rates. There are three different graphs, each one corresponding to when did they check that the bee was still alive. 1 week after they finished the treatment, quote unquote, is the way they call it. 4 weeks after they finished the treatment. 8 weeks after they finished the treatment. Okay. And what they found is that there is no significant difference in the survival rates for the control versus the ones that were partially drowned.
In fact, some of the ones that were partially drowned, more of them survived than the ones with no water.
Yeah, that part's wild to me. If we look at the table here, and there's a lot to read, so don't worry.
There's a table, and I want you to do this science. I do need to quibble for 1 second because you said partially drowned. And if you put me and held me underwater for 7 days, I would not describe my situation as partially drowned.
No, I think the ones left to float are considered partial drowned.
Copy. Okay. I take back my anger.
Yeah, the maintained underwater ones is different.
Also, anytime, I go out and drown someone now, I'm going to refer to them as submersion treatments.
I mean, bumblebees need air, right? Sorry, do the science.
Yeah. So basically what we find out is that if we look at the survival percentage on the left, table 1, for the control, like at 1 week, 4 weeks, and 8 weeks, from the control alone, there's 94% survived, 88% survived. Meanwhile, the ones that were maintained underwater for 8 hours, all of them survived. All of them survived the treatment. More of those survived than survived the control. And the differences are not significant. This is important. Like, statistically, we can't, 143 bees wasn't enough to determine whether these are actually different.
I mean, I guess that sort of makes sense. Like, if you think of the control as no water, right? Like, the living creatures need water to survive, right? So some of them are going to die of dehydration.
Well, here, man, I can't wait to get to. I can't wait until we get there.
No, James, Edie.
Yeah.
I need water as well, but there is a large difference between the amount of water held inside of, my water bottle that I sip sometimes when I need a little pick-me-up, and a bathtub of water that you have kept me inside of with a plunger.
This is true, which is why, I don't know.
Oh my god. Okay. So we're gonna keep going. So what we found out is that if you drown bees, most of them survive. How exciting!
That can't possibly be. Okay.
The only thing I can think here is they must be researching market demand for little bee water bottles.
That could be it. Any other hypotheses about what the hell they were trying to find out here?
Okay, actual serious hypothesis here.
God, so this is the part where we guess what the paper's gonna be. I didn't know that this was part of it. Okay, Edie? What do you?
Maybe they are looking into some sort of conservation efforts for wetland bees.
I guess that's what I was thinking too.
Right? Like,
the world is kind of doomed. The sea levels are rising, but then wouldn't it be salt water?
Right. You would think they would be doing something with salt water. But maybe I don't know. I have this on the brain because I recently saw a friend who was headed out to Cambodia for some conservation effort stuff, and I'm thinking of like the mangrove forests that flood regularly, and so maybe they're trying to understand survival habits of insects in these sort of wetland recurring flood areas. That's the only leap my brain is so far able to make.
But here's the thing, Edie, because my counter to that is that all sounds perfectly reasonable, and my fear is that knowing what some of the other papers James has found are, like that's like for all I know, Jeremy Hamburger just fucking hates bees.
What is the best way to find out where the bee king lives but to torture his many wives?
I mean, I guess to give my serious answer, maybe they're looking at this bee hibernation and trying to find out if the bees actually need to breathe.
Hey, that's a really good one, actually. Yeah.
Breathe? Bees got lungs, right?
Hey, at the start of this podcast, if you asked me if bees breathe, I would have been like, of course they do. What kind of a dumb question is that? And then James just pulled out a paper that showed that bees can be underwater for 8 days. Wait, I got one more reel. Is this a way that we transport bees to Mars?
Oh, yeah.
No, water's heavy. That doesn't make any sense. I take that. I don't know what's happening here, James. Please.
This
tell
is all fantastic. This is the point in the podcast where I tell you what the paper title was.
Okay.
He's so pleased with himself.
The title is Unveiling the Submerged Secrets, Bumblebee Queen's Resilience to Flooding. So Edie fucking nailed it. So these two researchers are bee scientists, but specifically they are interested in bee conservation. In particular, the first author is a postdoc who has recently been looking at the effects of pesticides, humidity, temperature variations on the success of colonies during the winters that bees are in diapause. So studying bumblebees, trying to figure out what factors will influence the success of the colony next year, which is important to know because, if you are trying to make conservation policy, what matters and what doesn't. Like, do you have to worry about the bees, or are they going to be resilient to certain kinds of things, or are they really sensitive to something else? And you should think about from a policy perspective that you should change something. So in a previous study, the first author, Sabrina Rondo, was studying the impact of pesticides on queen bees that are in diapause. And I'm going to read you the paragraph at the end of the introduction of this paper to tell you why the hell they're doing this. In a previous study, an experimental oversight led to the inadvertent accumulation of water in containers housing diapausing bumblebee queens under controlled conditions. Surprisingly, upon removing the water, the queens were found to be alive. Building on this intriguing observation, we conducted a study to determine whether bumblebee queens can endure periods of flooding while overwintering underground. This was something that nobody knew, and the reason why that they're doing it is that this grad student had an absolute nightmare happen.
Yeah, this is the worst. I have spent a lot of time working with grad students.
And they accidental drowned some bees.
and this fits perfectly with every grad assistant that I've ever had to work with, which is I turn the corner and somehow my bee container is filled with bees. It's like, what have you done?
So something must have happened on the humidity control end of things where suddenly you go back and check on your bees and they are all drowning, and you're like, oh my god.
And then, to your shock and surprise, they're still alive.
They just start wiggling those legs, and they wake back up again, and you're like, geez, what? How can this be?
The panic of a grad student just, yanking these tubes out of a container, like, oh shit, and then the bees are okay?
Incredible, right? You go back and you talk to the professor, and the professor comes around and says, oh, that's interesting. We should figure out how we should do science about this.
Yeah.
And write a paper about this.
Yeah, because they were like, oh, what a terrible mistake. And then he was like, I just discovered a use for my bee plunger.
Bee plunger. Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. This is actually a problem that a lot of insects have to deal with because actually there are a lot of insects that overwinter underground. And what's really interesting is that they have a whole bunch of the ones that underground have a whole bunch of adaptations that allow them to survive in low oxygen environments. They're basically like they're able to not only just like slow down their metabolism, but in fact switch their metabolism from an aerobic needing air to an anaerobic metabolism. So they can slow it down and they need very, very little oxygen.
That's the thing that makes me like, if this had been Pat's suggestion, if this had been research for like long-term space flight, I feel like that would have more value than like, hey, we found out bees can survive a flood.
Well, the problem, no, think about it like this. Like if if you're in the business of preserving an ecosystem, bumblebees are a really important pollinator. Already, like bumblebees don't like to. They go and they find places where it's not going to flood. You know, they do their best to nest in places that are like up on a hill or in sandy, well-drained soil and things like that. They try not to be in a place where it's going to be very wet, as opposed to say, I mean, friggin' dragonflies lay their eggs in water, right?
Yeah.
And that works because like they those actually have like little gills, and the eggs themselves are sealed and like little packages.
Wait. No, hold on. Back up. You can't just say that and walk past it. Dragonfly eggs have gills?
No, the dragonfly larvae do. The dragonfly nymphs.
Hey,
flip.
James, you know that's weirder, right? You know that it's weirder that the creatures themselves have gills, that the eggs don't have a system for keeping the thing alive, but rather the thing itself.
Y'all, it's a different. If I start telling you everything I know about dragonflies, it's a different part. It's a different podcast.
Okay. Well, we need to talk about that later because I've just learned that dragonflies have gills. So.
Yep.
I want to I want to read some of the adaptations they talked about, like because it's really wild stuff.
Can I ask a question before you go into that? So this experiment, they were just testing to see if the bees survived. They weren't looking into how, because that's a different experiment, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because like that's my initial thing is like cool. You've just discovered that these bees can be underwater for 7 days.
7 days.
And are still okay after. And they've only done 7 days because that's my other like. There's two things that come to my head after this, which is first is how are they doing it, and then my next thing is like, okay, but how long can they be down there? Because if 7 days was fine,
they basically were like, okay, hold on, can they survive an indefinite amount of time at 100% success rate?
Sure, I get it, right? Because, like, they're looking at these time things, right? Like, oops, grad students spilled the thing. I'm assuming that it was, like, a long-running trial, and so, like, I'm sure they had, like, you know, those bees were in there for, like, a day or two or something like that. And so they're like, okay, the 8 hours is, let's just confirm that this is what we think it is. 24 hours is, like, probably pretty close to, like, what they thought they were in there for. And then my guess would be that, like, 7 days would be, like, how long do we think they can make it, though? And, like, all of them made it, which makes me feel like we need to drown more bees.
I know. Well, there's the funding question. It's like,
I know. I want you to read your thing, but that is going to be my argument on the funding side when we get to it at the end.
They're not done. They should get a bigger grant for it. I hear you, Pat.
I actually have more questions, and I'm shocking even myself. I am being tipped over to. I do want to know. Yeah, but how long can they go?
All right, so I'm going to talk about one of the adaptations that they think might be applied to this, and I'll read the sentence from the paper. Many diapausing insects, including bumblebee queens, employ discontinuous gas exchange, keeping spiracles closed for extended periods with only brief intermittent bursts of gas exchange. What that means is that diapausing insects take one big deep breath and hold it. And because their metabolism is so slow, that's good enough. And they can go for long periods of time without having to freeze again.
Hey, I came up with an important question as you read that, which is, do bees fart?
You know, these are questions that I will have to now go find out.
Edie, that's another experiment. we are spending billions on bee research, and it's only we're not even halfway through the first episode.
So what that allows them to do, it serves to reduce the risk of desiccation. You were talking about drying out, and exposure to environmental challenges such as hypoxia, which is no oxygen, but may also reduce water entry through spiracles during submersion. So basically, these things are so tiny, and they don't breathe through their mouth. They actually breathe through their exoskeleton. There are these little openings all over.
Fucking
Y'all are
horrifying.
learning so much about bugs today, but it means that those little tiny openings are actually water can't enter because they're so small because you get surface tension.
Yeah.
So they don't have to breathe. They don't get inundated like with water like we would if you had lungs. And further, because of they might be able to actually trap air bubbles near their exoskeleton, which again, using the surface tension, breathe the bubbles.
Oh, because are they? Because bumblebees are fuzzy too, right? So like, is that what they're saying with the air bubbles can get grabbed by that?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's actually pretty interesting.
So they may not need to breathe for long periods of time. And like this is not all insects, and especially this is not most adult insects. There are a lot of insects that, for example, like beetle grubs, when they're in their larval state, live in like lawns, and like they live underground. And they just eat stuff They eat roots. They eat whatever is down there, and then eventually like pupate and then become a beetle.
Isn't like drowning ticks one of the best way to kill ticks or something too, right?
Yeah, I don't think they diapause. I don't. I guess they probably don't do that, but I don't know. Life cycles of ticks are weird, and haven't looked into it because they're kind of gross. For me, for me in particular, I like things that fly.
All right, let's file that piece of information down. I've just found the thing that James says that's kind of gross,
I don't like ticks.
I know.
I don't know.
I have 20 plus years talking to this man, and I also
And
know.
I'm shocked that ticks are the one.
And I also know some of the papers that are coming, and I want everybody to know that ticks are the line.
Yep.
Look, I think blood feeding is just kind of gross. We'll see.
It's gonna be a lot of bugs, ladies and gents.
Look, it's my field. Some of the other episodes will not
Your
be bugs.
field is robotics.
Literally. Okay, look. Look, the robot. I don't like the direction look. Oh God, I don't like the.
I don't like the direction that robotics is going. Is that what you just said?
We can't talk about this. We're talking about bumblebees.
Okay. Okay.
Again, gonna put a pin in that one. We'll come back to that later.
So yeah, what we've discovered is that because of adaptations, bumblebees can survive heavy rain events and in fact like full like submerged flooding for at least 7 days. But all the evidence says that like 50-50, probably a long time after that, you know. But again, they don't have all the data. There's like a list of 7 different directions at the end of this paper that they're like, hey, somebody else, please look at this. This is wild. No one's seen this before. Here's some ideas of what else could be. Some of these are like, okay, do they still have air in a real bumblebee queen hibernaculum? Like, are wild bees versus commercial bees, because remember they bought these from a store, are wild bees and commercial bees different?
Wait, so they are asking if store-bought is fine?
Yes. It's honestly, hey, that's an important question. It's an important question because like there are like knowing the different, you got to know all the differences between the ones that you get from the store and the ones you can go dig up in a hole at the outside. It's important to know the difference.
I want you to know that 100,000 questions just came into my head about what's the difference between store-bought bees and not, but we are going to keep moving forward.
And so so there's more work to be done, but this is wild. And I was like, I could not believe that this is true. I love the story. I think that this does tell you, one of the things they mentioned is that bumblebees are very resilient. What they've found is that bumblebees, as opposed to other types of bee, are very resilient to changes that are associated with climate change. And if we can understand why, then we can figure out like why other like less resilient species are less resilient. And comparing morphologically, where those differences come from, and therefore maybe help with bee conservation and save our food supply while we're at it. So I think that's the case for.
They bought the bee queens individually?
No, so they bought the colonies.
They bought the whole colony.
They bought the colonies, and then they dug the bees out of the colonies.
Right, because I remember you said that the other bees all died. So they waited until the other bees died, or they were just like,
no, just kind
time
of
for science.
So colonies produce more than one, and apparently they produce many females.
I see.
And in nature, they would like go fly off and mate, and then go to
do their own new colonies
and go form new colonies. In this case, they produced a whole bunch.
Yeah, how many? Did it say how many colonies they bought?
4.
4, and they got 128.
140, yeah, 143 queens. And that, like, I literally picture them with tweezers going in and be like, oh, there's one, grab it, put it in another box.
That's a grad student job.
Other important questions. Is this ability to live underwater restricted only to bee royalty?
Well, they're the only ones that do the sleepy time, right? The other ones all die.
Oh, the other ones all die. Okay.
The other ones get to the end of the summer and die.
Only royalty gets the hibernaculum.
Which is really, I did not know that. So only the queens survive through the... How do they... There must be some male bees that survive in order for colonies to...
No, I bet they lay eggs, right?
They're fertilized before they go to sleep.
Yeah.
And then they lay eggs when they lay eggs the next spring.
I'm learning all sorts of new things about why the bee population is so very vulnerable.
Right. Because they're just underground someplace. This is why people talk about not raking up all of your leaves or like mowing all the leaves into your lawn, because there are animals in there. You know, there might be bees sleeping under those leaves that you don't even know about, that you just shredded or you like raked into a pile. And they're sleeping. They're cold. They're not going to wake up. They're just going to wake up they're going to wake up in the spring if they're still alive and be like, where the hell am I?
So now, as you have said, we have come to the question, the crux of the matter.
The crux of the matter: are we fucking around, or did we find something out cool, or is it both?
Okay, so now it's us. We're back, and you can tell partially because James doesn't sound like he's recording from inside a vast empty warehouse. I'm sure.
Hopefully, yeah.
Your audio should have gotten a lot better between what we did in the first episode and now.
I think that's true.
I know. Hey, I know that's true. So the way that these episodes work now is, now that we've presented the paper, the three of us are going to agree upon a scale. And the scale, given that this is the ridiculous research review, is going to be a score of ridiculousness versus a score of researchness. All right? Both of these are...
Researchness. Both of these are real words.
Highly technical. We're professionals.
I want to be so clear, James. These numbers are infallible. It's, as we have seen over the course of all these episodes...
Exactly right.
Once set, they never change.
Yeah.
These numbers are so good.
Certainly not.
Yeah.
Certainly not. Perfect scale.
Right. So, just to lay it out for the audience, scale of 1 to 5. So looking at ridiculousness, right? It keeps that idea from the beginning of this episode of, like, how much fucking around are these scientists doing at work, right? So, like, the more they are just messing around at work, the closer it's going to be to a 5. The more they are doing, like, normal science is a 1. But it's not just messing around at work, right? If they're doing particularly freaky or weird things, that's going to creep them up to 4s and 5s as well, okay?
Yeah. Man, some of them really do earn that score.
Research is a little more straightforward. We talked a little bit in this past episode about, like, you know, whether or not a thing gets funded. For your reference, I suppose on our scale of research, a thing that doesn't deserve to be funded, quote unquote, which we don't really believe as a thing, would be a 0. And we've never given a 0, and I don't think we will. Sorry for the spoiler on all the episodes to come. A 1 is, like, straightforward, normal science that you would expect to see. Charts, spreadsheets, longitudinal studies, all that kind of good stuff.
But it's kind of dumb and we don't like it.
Well, it's just, it's by the book, it's pretty normal, and you don't really see how it's going to impact your daily life, or really life at all. A 5, however, is going to be something that is, you know, it could be Nobel prize winning. It could be something that comes up every single day where we think this study is going to have a major impact on people's lives in general, and we will be biased towards ourselves because it's a podcast and that's what we do.
Or also it could be something that's like going to save the world. Like this is science that is deeply, deeply, deeply needed.
Sure. And then like a 3 is sort of like straight down the middle, right? So like if it's not super flashy and exciting, right? Like it doesn't create a new type of battery or something, but it contributes to an ongoing body of work that seems important. That's probably safe to bet is a 3, basically. So that all said,
I want to say, I want to say here up front, I don't think this is an excellent scale, and I'll tell you why.
It's a perfect scale, and I disagree.
Because fundamentally, when you're fundamentally, we are only ever talking about like 1, maybe 2 papers when we're talking about something on this show, and a single paper cannot be expected to change the world, in my point of view. A single lab with a PI, maybe a PI or multiple PIs, and then like a chain of graduate students over the course of 20, 30, 40 years of a career might change the world. That's hundreds at least of papers. An individual paper is a unique novel contribution to the body of knowledge, where it is at its best. It's contributing something new, a new method, a new bit of information, a new understanding that doesn't exist before. But like, honestly, there are excellent papers that will never come up in anybody's life, but over the course of many years, it will be a part of a thing that changes life for all of humanity.
Yes, we know you like science. James is feeling that the goal is unattainable. I feel that James needs to get his science buds to try harder.
Oh my god!
I mean, everything you said is beautiful. Can I give these bees a number from 1 to 5 now?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now let's talk about whether these bees are research or not.
Yeah. Let's start with research. Okay. 1 to 5 on the research of the bees who have the incredible ability to not drown.
Yeah, I think on the research side, I think this is a wonderful little example of, oh, something terrible happened. Oh no. But wait, hold on. We've learned something new that we didn't know before, and maybe we don't have to stress so much about the bees, so much about at least the bumblebees are getting in flood terrain in Vermont now that Vermont's flooding a lot more, for example.
I mean, I think as we mentioned in the episode, like, there's a lot of this research project this experiment left me with more questions than answers, right? Because all we know is that most of the bees did not die after 7 days. In fact, more of the control bees died than the bees that were submerged underwater for 7 days. So how long can they stay down there?
It's a great question.
I think that's a good question, but I also think there's like a ton of things that this research paper touches on. Not just like bees is the hyper focus of the study, but it touches on climate change and climate resiliency and all of these sorts of things. So I would like to start the bidding at a solid 4.
I was actually leaning towards 4. Like, by our rules, like it's like, ongoing body of research work on environmentalism, which feels like a safe 3, but also I don't want the planet to die, and I like bees. So.
Yeah. Bumblebees in particular are important native pollinators in many places in North America.
Great. I think research 4 is an agreement. I can agree with that. Which brings us to the ridiculousness of Jeremy Hemberger and his team of bee murderers. Well, bee attempted murderers, because they didn't actually murder that many.
They didn't kill that many bees. That's the thing.
Which also definitively and objectively is another 4. This is ridiculous. They put bees in fridges and they drown them.
Man, I think it would be a 3 if not for the plunger.
It's the
plunger. The bee plunger really does it.
It's the plunger that does it. It's the plunger that does it. I can't deny it. Look, I had I had to do this. I had to have this on the show because as soon as I saw the plunger, I was like, I have to show this to people. This is amazing.
It's so silly.
They liked the plunger idea so much. They didn't just take photographs of the little plunger setup they made. They hired an illustrator to create a diagram in case you two wanted to create your own bee plunger.
You say hire an illustrator. I think this looks more like it's either Inkscape or it could have been PowerPoint. Because those are it's a lot of simple geometry in there, and you could make this in PowerPoint.
So a grad student lovingly crafted his rendition.
Yes, absolutely.
Canva back in its beta release.
As somebody who I made a lot of diagrams like that. Okay, I did a lot of
bee crimes.
I never. Well,
you don't lie.
Did you do bee crimes?
I did like one bee crime. I did like
You
one
did
bee
a
crime.
bee crime.
Because I was working with our collaborators at Georgia Tech who had moths and bees because they study the neuromuscular system of like brain muscle system of flying insects, and they did have me dissect a bee and also a handful of moths. So I did.
You did do a bee crime.
I did do a bee crime.
Cool. So I think we can very strongly and definitively say that is a for ridiculousness and for research for bee waterboarding crimes.
Yeah, it's a 4.
Perfect. Sounds
Take it
great.
to Wendy's.
Cool. No, okay. No, podcast over.
There was somebody who was studying Argentine ants, and the great thing about Argentine ants is that they've taken over California. That means they're right outside. So she would literally go get a Home Depot plastic bucket and walk around the campus till she saw some Argentine ants, and then follow them back to the dirt, and with a shovel dig up an entire colony for science. And nobody but the landscapers were upset with her.
No one but the landscaper.
I've just had a thought pop into my head, and I've had this prescient moment where I fear that this is how we will be able to end every single episode of this goddamn podcast. No, and the line is this: man, scientists are a bunch of freaks.
Scientists are a huge bunch of freaks.